Hey everyone, welcome to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. We're doing something a little bit different, although you may recognize this face with an extra beard. Hey Dan.
Hi, hello again.
Hey Dan, so good to have you. So I wrote Dan in kind of at the last minute because I realized that this episode was going to go out on Christmas Eve, so the day before Christmas Eve, and I thought, what is the content that's going to sort of be topical and not be singing about the baby Jesus, but be actually like connecting to people's soul or what they might be going through? And I just, thought back to my last Christmas when I was just divorced and I didn't have my kids with me for like the first time ever in their like over a decade of their life. And it was deeply, deeply, deeply lonely and difficult. And I thought it was an excellent idea to start a business pretty soon after that, which was also deeply lonely. And so I've kind of been exploring the topic of loneliness for myself and the taboo around admitting it in our like hyper cool Instagrammable society, right? And Dan and I connected throughout the year on this topic quite a bit, actually. You've actually been there for me, Dan. I appreciate it a lot.
And you as well, so thank you. Yeah,
it was really good just to connect and be open and chat through these sorts of ideas. And Dan's also got some content out called, sorry, I'm struggling. Dan's got, no, it's amazing content, but it just puts it out in an old school way. Thoughts of a Lonely Man. So he's been kind of capturing and evidencing some of his thinking process around loneliness throughout the year as well. So I thought, why not have a 30-minute, 40-minute, we can't stop talking, so a little bit of a conversation about the topic of loneliness, and hopefully anyone who's in that situation now, missing family or being reflective or feeling a bit down or a bit isolated, will be able to just get some tips and tricks, some things that we've learned, and realize that you're not alone is the first thing. Like you may feel alone, but you're not alone. It's a human experience, and we just want to go there. So there's my little opener. Dan, welcome. Tell us a bit about Thoughts of a Lonely Man, and then we'll get into like our experiences.
Yeah, okay. I will start, as we are talkers, I'm going to start from the very beginning of what inspired this whole thing. So I don't know if I mentioned it in any other podcast, but I know that I had this desire to move away from a place that I'd lived in on and off for like 20 years. And I never knew what was feeding it and what it was about, but I just wanted to, I don't even know necessarily get away, more as move towards something. And there's this story that's forever stuck in my head. The Mike Posner, he was an artist, a pop artist. I say he was, he probably still is, but we don't hear about him much anymore, so I don't know. Okay. He did the song, which one is it? If I could write you a song to make you fall in love, I would already have that one. That was him. And he was on one of these videos on YouTube. I know there's a very popular series that I don't like watching. And he was talking about being alone. He actually talked about being by himself, truly by himself. And he went out to this retreat in China, I believe it was. And they take you up this walk, this long walk up this like mountain and stuff. And they put you in this hut. And all you have in this hut, if I can remember correctly, was like a bedside table, a shelf with a flower on it, and a bed. And then outside there was an axe for chopping wood. And you were brought food every now and then. So it wasn't, you weren't there to starve and survive for yourself.
It's still like basic survival.
Very basic, yeah. You're obviously, again, you're cut away from the internet. You're cut away from social interaction. That's it. The only time he said when you had social interaction was someone brought you some form of sustenance or something. And he said that at first, he got to the hut, he sat down and he kind of looked around and he kind of wanted to reorder things. Let's make this room the way I want it to be. So he reordered the room and he did that. And I can't remember whether or not he said that he went to chop some wood or something, but he suddenly became very aware that there was nothing to do really quickly. There was absolutely nothing to do. And he then became aware that his brain just was really trying hard to the point of self-induced anxiety to do something.
To find something, to feel useful.
Yeah, exactly. Something to do that made it useful. And long story short, he found that in that nothing, in that space where there was nothing to do, he recognized, for one, that we are conditioned indeed to believe that we have to continue doing something. Our brains are learning this process of having to achieve, no matter how small, something. even if it's something mundane, like let's put this book this way instead of down, and da, da, da.
But back in the day, what you're saying is that that's kind of survival. Primal instinct is we need to be alert for danger. We need to be, saving up food or doing something always to survive.
Well, I don't know about that because the more I'm looking at now, the more I'm realizing that, I mean, if you look at, let's pull it out of the air, like spirituality and how far back, the millennia that's gone back, we're actually doing nothing as a deep part of,
Got
and I
it.
say doing nothing, it's, connecting, meditating is
Being
a
able
deep
to
part
sit
of,
with oneself.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that goes back thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. Maybe, back caveman days or beyond that, perhaps, sure. But we certainly developed very, very, very long time ago the ability to sit with ourselves and be alone with ourselves and find that oneness with it, be it with God, be it with spirits, be it with the universe, whatever we choose to have as our higher power. And that really spoke to me because he didn't say this, but I saw that as our brains learning this process of distracting itself from dealing with itself.
Totally.
Right?
Totally get it.
Constantly. Yeah. So I translated that story into that. And I was going through this process where I was at the tail end of a very happy, yay, everything is wonderful positivity period where I was going to things like Yes Group and attending these like high five seminars and stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew past it, not in any judgmental way, just kind of went, I'm all right with that now. And my demons started to catch up with me a little bit. And I thought, how am I really going to take these? Am I really going to have to continue taking these on? And I think the loneliness that I actually put myself into was me wanting to take those demons on. And what I wanted to do with this old school podcast system is actually document what was going on in my head and thoughts and feelings about it. I'd love to listen to it again. I listened to each episode kind of a day after I'd listened to it, but I'd want to listen to them again to see how I feel about them now. But it was an exploration of how I feel. And Petra, you've heard this firsthand. But for anyone else who wants to hear it firsthand, you can head over to my Instagram account and you'll see the link there. But you have to download the files. It's not a streaming service.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to sign it up to like Spotify or anything like that because I didn't want to feel this pressure to have to put content out. I really wanted to go, have I had a moment that I think needs to be shared, yes or no, and then put it out when I felt comfortable.
That makes
sense.
And
if I'm paying for it, I'm there. So that's it. That's how it works. And what you hear in there is genuinely a person who is getting comfortable with themselves, challenging themselves, asking themselves questions, and almost resolving a lot of their own contention. Sometimes not always coming to conclusion, but sometimes finding an answer that settles the self. So that's what it's really all about. And there's different topics. I talk about bigotry, I talk about sex, I talk about friendships, and I talk about myself. I talk about, these different things. And it's still going. So I said to you, just before we started this, I was like, oh, there's another one I need to put out. So they come and go quite irregularly, but I'm still interested in how it moves because there's been another thing that's happened, again, that I mentioned today in regards to this loneliness. And I think it's a reflection of what... Let me think. Everyone, let me think.
Well, while you're thinking, think for a second. And I just want to grab out little bits that you said that actually really relate to our time, to our world, the idea that we're constantly distracted, right? So these days, if you choose to never, ever effing sit with yourself, you can. You literally can. But it's like, where does all that self go, right? In the numbing and the distractions and the Netflix and the scrolling. Like I do it sometimes myself. I'm just in the queue for this, to pay for something, or I'm just on the tube or whatever. Yeah. I'm actually caught up on my notifications. I haven't really got anything purposeful or intentional to do. But we just stare at our phones because it's like the ability to sit with ourselves in relation to others even is like, it's like we're losing the skill or something. And so when we do, so like when I would be, sat in my empty flat by myself and my kids had gone and, I wasn't chatting with anyone, and I've got good friends and good people, I'd have to sit with just the voices in your head. Yeah. And I know that sounds extreme, but I think that's what you're saying is you wanted to communicate what the voices or the working out bit that was going on. So you actually put have a witness to it, and of course
Yeah.
express it to others, because often that's the one thing we don't express, right? We sit in our shame and we go, nobody else feels lonely. Everyone's out, with the most glamorous party, and I'm the only one kind of weeping on my sofa. And so there's something quite relatable, I think, about everything, and quite brave then to be like, fuck this, I will face my demons. I will step into the loneliness. Like, that actually terrifies me. Even though I've had little glimpses of it, it's like,
No,
what do you
sure.
mean? That's terrifying. So the thing that happened, tell us. If I didn't just like completely distract you from it.
No. You actually help with the thought. So it's. I think the part though that is poignant is the preparation for dealing with that. Because when I say dealing with demons, I'm happy to share publicly that I've reached a point where I've recognized I've got to a level, and this is how I put the analogy forward. I've got to a level where I'm seeking out therapy, and I'm going to a therapist to work through the areas that I cannot deal with on my own, that I sit with myself, and the real dark parts, as it were. I know what they are, but I'm not sure how to emotionally traverse them in order to heal them on my own. So I go, right, this is something that the professional takes on.
Smart, yeah.
But even then, I would say, it's funny, you say we forgot how to do this. I'm not sure if we ever learned. I know I mentioned some cultures have done this and they've had it in their being as they've gone generation to generation, but I don't know if we ever did learn this really, because perhaps, maybe philosophers are the best example of people who've had to do it. But other than that, like you say, we've always had something. Just because social media is in play, that doesn't mean we didn't have books who take us to different far off worlds. It doesn't mean we didn't have playtime with a stick and a wheel that we could just go outside and play with. We had bikes, we had horses, we had pets, we had jobs. Friendship, exactly. And that's it. We've always had something to distract us. And it's funny because actually someone did point out that sometimes that's where imagination and creativity shines, which is also great.
True point.
But if we're talking about ourself and dealing with those kind of other parts of ourself, I guess what I'm saying is that if we are prepared to, and if we choose to, there's a beauty in the relationship that you build with yourself should you find yourself alone. And that's not, again, to say like it's all the time. Yes, I did have those moments where it was very isolating, very scary.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was very scary. And
painful.
Absolutely.
Triggering. I've got those words.
No, on a unique level as well, because I think because it's the first time I'd felt that, it genuinely was. I don't understand it. I know what it is, but I don't understand it because I've never felt this before. This is really scary.
That's incredible.
And painful. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who has always appeared to have a lot of people around him.
You do. You definitely appeared to be, or you did when I first sort of met you on the scene of talks or events, an extrovert, somebody who's very popular, who's charming, who's well connected. So on the outside looking in, and people would say the same thing about me. On the outside looking in, life's cool. You obviously have loads of friends, deep, meaningful friendships. And like, I would never imagine that you would feel lonely, much less step into loneliness. And people would say the same thing about me because I've got a good story of like, divorce is freedom, business is great. It's tough, or you go, it's tough, and I'm doing all these things because you want to switch it to the positive. And so there was a period of time when I was expressing, and you were one of the people where I was actually saying out loud that taboo of, this is loneliness, and I haven't felt this for a really long. Unlike you, I have definitely felt it in the past, just through having 2 kids and being isolated, living by being on my own all day with the kids, and there were times because of my religious and traveling upbringing that I was definitely alone, even in a crowd, like that whole phenomenon. But there's something, I guess, about saying the words that I wanted to name the shame, because I've learned that's useful in helping to connect. But then also there came a point where it wasn't useful anymore. because it became a definition of who I was rather than just a part of my experience. So obviously you've been doing this for a year or less that you moved
No,
away.
less than a year.
Yep.
It's only been since since beginning of May, end of April, that this has been the case. But in this space, there's so many things that I want to have to say, because I'm thinking about people out there who might be listening, who are in situations of loneliness for so many different reasons. And I kind of want to just pay acknowledgement to the different ways that people can end up being alone, because I'm obviously one person, and I put this on myself.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to be conscious for every person in that situation, be it choice or not, unfortunately. But it's only been since May, and the fascinating thing really is, first of all, how lonely I think on some level I'd always felt, for a number of reasons. And we don't have time to go into all of that, but
your deep psyche. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sense. I think it sounds a bit of a cliche now, but it's that kind of being in a crowd of people and feeling completely alone, that kind of thing.
Been there.
Yeah, even though, yes, again, I was on stage and I felt like I was always with people, and there was a lot of positive attention towards me and so on. I just hadn't found, I realize now, my people, my real people.
Your tribe, the people where you feel really seen.
Yeah.
And like that's a difference between being around humans and even having conversation, but the difference between that and having deep, meaningful conversations and connection where you feel really seen and you really see the other person. I feel like that's the difference.
Massively. Yeah, it's on a soulful level that you feel nourished. Having said that, there were moments where I did naturally really miss just having a laugh with someone on some really, shallow, empty, vapid stuff. There was that. And I think that's the point that I did want to make, is that I'd only been in this state from May, right? And it's going to be December when this comes out. I mean, it's December now, but early December. And I already got that sense of just a smile with someone in the street would be enough.
Yeah.
Just that. And I really want to make that clear to people out there who do see people who are clearly on their own, particularly at this time of year. Like the eye contact and a smile and a nod, that acknowledgement that while that person may have been in their head for a long time, that they are also valid in the world around them. Like, I can't imagine what that's like for someone who's been alone for longer than I have, because I felt it. I wouldn't say profoundly, but it certainly made a difference in my day and how I felt.
Yeah. And that doesn't cost anything. And part of the antidote to loneliness, I just want to flip it, is to be that person as well. To give back, absolutely. Right? So it can go both ways. Knowing that if your life is full, that you can make such a difference in just taking that little moment of kindness or seeing someone or connection, which is crazy in our busy cities, sort of that we live in, where everyone's on their bloody phones. It's like you've got to make a conscious effort to see people and actually connect. And even with your friends, like you meet the friend and you have the vapid, like glass of wine conversation, your phones are out, nobody, like you're not really present. And so you miss out sometimes on the opportunities to fully connect when you can. I want to flip it for a second, because we're talking about the pain of loneliness.
Yes.
But do you think through your journey that there is a benefit? Is there one? He nods furiously.
I'm nodding aggressively.
For those on audio.
I was going to tell you before the episode.
Okay, tell me.
Because this was today's epiphany I had in the morning. I have a friend of mine who she gets like 50-minute voice notes from me in the car. And
I only get 10-minute voice notes.
Well, Petra,
I can't handle it. 10 minutes is all I can handle. So what was your epiphany?
So this morning, it was sharing stuff that I'm working on right now with her, because we have this, not just like the same understanding of certain things in the world, but there's the work that we do, which actually is in line, and the attitude we have towards everything just kind of, just really fits. And so there's this element of learning and teaching from each other where we both have this same, almost equal goal, as it were.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And um, and I realized that there are people out there. This is going to sound perhaps harsh, and I only say that because this is an awareness I've brought up with myself today. And this can span as far back as I can think. What happened with loneliness is I did separate myself from a large group of people, very large. I mean, I was going to say, if you count Facebook, it's thousands, but they don't count.
And do you mean just like old friendships and like people that you've acquired through time?
No, but honestly, a large group of people. Like, if you think about it, I lived in the same city for, on and off 20 years. There's a lot of people that I would know there.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I'd be friends with there. And I up and left. I went. And I recognized that it was honestly because, and again, it feels hard to say, but it actually is honestly the truth, was that I wanted to have those really meaningful friendships where I always felt like I could be genuinely my best. And I just never been able to develop that with the people that I knew. And so in the loneliness, what I eventually came around to was realizing that I have a certain caliber of person that I really, truly will give my time to. And this is a natural response I have as well. There are people out there who, if they don't hear from me, or if they're not like, even like the on and off messages, if I'm not saying, let's go for a beer or something like that, it's kind of like the response is they're not high on my priority. It's really harsh to say, genuinely.
No, it's true.
It's true. Like, they're not high on my priority list. And that's the honest truth of it. They're not. Whereas I recognize there are people who I will spend 50 minutes leaving a voice note to. And there are people who I will message out of the blue because I'm like, I wonder what they're up to,
Of course.
And people who I will put time into. And I think this is natural for everyone. But again, we might not be conscious of it because you might feel obliged to do certain things with certain people because, social and stuff. And I think what I'd done is I kind of, on a level, I feel like there was a fuse went where I was like, do you know what? I'm just not getting my real life right now. I'm not finding my real people. And so in the loneliness, I recognized that and this is the thing, because I was lonely, you would have thought that I'd be desperately clambering to hang out with anyone.
Which is your first reaction, though. Like, often it's almost like an addiction, right? It's like, oh, anyone's better than no one, so let me just swipe and text and pull in anyone, even if they're like lower vibration or not really connected to the nourishing us. I love the way that you said that earlier. So I think what you're saying is the loneliness provided you space to actually consciously decide what types of people you wanted in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
So where does that leave you now? Do you have amazing conscious people in your life now? Are you fully connected? Is loneliness disappeared?
The beautiful thing is that because, again, it was a natural process that I myself wasn't aware of, but was taking place doing.
Sure.
I'm not gonna lie, people like you who, we speak on and off, but we still are technically in touch with each other.
Absolutely. Connected.
Right? And there are, absolutely. And there are, again, other people who I choose to contact when I think of them.
Yeah.
And that's that. And that's come out of me really carefully picking my time and energy on who I really want to put my time and energy into. Now, because this is a recent thing, it does mean that actually my circle of caliber of people is small and actually very, very scarce. Do I want a bigger one? Yes. Do I want to fill that circle with people, in line with me? Yes, absolutely I do. I don't really want to be one of those people who's like, I've got this small connected group and that's us and that's it. I actually want a full-on cohort of people. Okay,
so for people listening, because I do get this a lot, I get people who feel isolated, they feel lonely, they might feel a little bit sad, hopeless, even anxious. So because they haven't been integrating with those right kind of people forever or for a while, they almost don't know how to do it, or they feel like they'll be the awkward one, or so like did
Sure.
this group just automatically come to you? What were the steps that if you look back, that you took
Thank
to
you.
begin
Yeah.
to build that group?
Oh, this is so cheesy, but
I
it's
love a
just
bit of cheese.
unfortunately, it's the truth every time, unfortunately, but it's just
What is
so.
it? What is it?
So you start with you, right? Because
Mm,
you're not gonna know who your kind of people are if you don't know who you are, and it's the common thing, right? And I only say that because of the work that we do, and we're familiar with people saying all this stuff, but it's
yeah.
true. And I don't think that if I had put the time as well into being alone and dealing with myself and addressing myself and really paying attention to that, had I come to this place where I was like, the reason I'm at this place is because I hadn't found those people that I could truly be myself with. And I will say, I had my temper tantrums about it. I would moan to people about how alone I was, and I would bitch and moan about how people, treated me in the past and all this stuff. I did actually have those moments within the last few months. But then, of course, I got over myself and I was like, right, we've had our tantrum. What's really going on? And the issue was that I just hadn't met people who I really, really bonded with, who actually, if they told me off, I'd actually understand. And I'd be like, yeah, I totally get what you tell me, because actually that was out of line, or, da 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 da.
You challenge each other in a healthy way rather than tear each other down.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
you sat with the discomfort long enough, even though you tantrumed out and you did whatever. Like I certainly swiped way too much on Tinder, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just cried quite a bit, and met up with people that weren't quite the right people, just because there were times when I just didn't want to be alone, or I
Mm,
wanted physical contact. So the thing that
mhm.
I miss is not having, and I don't even mean sex, I just mean physical
No,
contact, like
sure.
a hug
Yeah,
or a
yeah, yeah.
handshake or a something. Um,
Mm,
but it's in sitting with the discomfort long enough, even though it goes like this, right? It's like sit with it, don't sit with it, sit with it, don't sit with it. That allows you to then come through to this other side of choices, like consciously putting
mm.
yourself out with investing in those people. So you're not doing it from a needy place. You're kind of going,
No.
hey, I'm really curious about you. You seem to be a person that I might match with, or that we might be able to support each other. And it's a
Mm,
different kind of vibe than the kind of, I'm alone, be with me. It's that's a
mhm.
taking thing rather than a
Yeah.
curiosity around. I love what you said about it starts with you. So that's,
Mm,
who am I in the world? How can I be
yeah.
curious about who I want to be and the interactions that I want to have?
Mm.
What else just about growing that group? Like, how did you do it?
So again, like bear in mind again, this kind of moment, this light bulb was today, and it felt extremely. I think it felt extremely empowering. But of course, for me, I think, right, what would someone suggest to me if
The roles were
if I
reversed.
was this? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And
So if
and
they, so okay. Or what would you suggest to someone else if they were lonely and by themselves?
also that's the one.
Because you're
So
wise, yes.
yeah. So I thought, okay, so then what you need to do is literally live your life. Where would you want to hang out then, Dan? Where do you want to go? What kind of events interest you? What kind of events don't interest you? Because that's another important thing. I actually had a long chat about fancy dress parties, and now I had this thing about I really don't like them.
I
I
don't
really
like them either.
no, I don't
And
like
I've
fancy
got
dress
friends
parties.
that bring me to them, and I'm like, no, it still doesn't work for me.
No, no, I'm not a fan of them. And I had to come to this realization that I didn't have to dig into why. I didn't have to, try and find what was going on in my
The
childhood
deeper
and stuff. It's
meaning.
like,
Yeah.
no, I just don't like them. That's
Just not
it.
into it.
So it's as much a case of, I mean, we're looking at boundaries now, and this is the whole identity building process of what do you like? What don't you like? What are you not sure about? Try it. Yes or no, but through building that group, you're basically just living your life, and people will naturally stay or
Love that
go.
so much.
Do you
So,
know what I mean? People
yeah.
naturally will stay or go, and that will be a case of whether you feel like you're vibing with them.
And it
You know?
means that you have to get out of your comfort zone, take a
Yeah.
few risks,
Hmm.
because you may not fully know all those things because there's so much available to us. About 6 weeks ago, I went to an improv class I told you about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I went to the improv class shit scared
Sure.
because I was like, everyone's going to be younger and cooler and know what they're doing. But it was a beginner's improv class. People don't come because they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, sure.
I took a risk because I wanted to see if I liked it and just test myself a little bit. And sure enough, totally had fun, got out of my comfort zone, which is always like, even if it's not the right thing, even if that's not your tribe, the getting out of your comfort zone to try it just makes the testing the next thing easier.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
challenge myself to always talk to somebody and connect with
Hmm.
them. And I will often be the first one to kind of go, that person's cool. Like, hey, can I have your number? Like, I don't wait. It's, let's go for coffee. Let me catch up with you. And it slowly, you begin, like now I look and I go, oh, I've got really cool, interesting people in my life. People that I think are cool. People that nourish me, not just the ones that I feel I nourish them. Because
Yeah.
often it can become this drain cycle.
Mm.
Um, and then you're like, I've got so many good people in my life.
Yeah.
But even having said that, in running my own business and in just London life, where people have plans and all the rest of it, the practice of sitting with myself is hard still,
Mm.
but useful. And so I just want to encourage people to sit with the discomfort. But also, there's a difference between sitting with the discomfort and learning, developing yourself,
Mm.
and versus wallowing in self-pity, right?
Yeah.
And just being
Massively.
like, the world, oh, woe is me, the world is against me. So like, I
Mm.
would urge people to ask themselves the question, what is in your control and what isn't in your
Mm.
control? Because sometimes we can be the first one to pick up the phone and connect with someone. We don't have to wait. Sometimes we can be the one to go volunteer so that we
Mm.
can be around and be giving back in some way.
Yes.
What would you say to that? Just that difference between self-pity versus healthy alone time.
I want to say they both have equal importance because the thing is the self-pity part. Follow me on this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.
The self-pity part eventually fades as long as you do the other side because
Got it.
I went through the self-pity phase as well.
Yeah, so did I.
But
Let's be
over
real.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
over time, and we both had that other mindset of, okay, that's happened, so let's go on to the next bit. But I can speak for myself, and I say those moments very quickly were further and farther apart,
That's true.
and they got easier and easier to deal with until eventually. Well, actually, what happened was it wasn't that I stopped feeling them; it was actually that life somehow magically started to happen,
Mm-hmm.
which was odd.
Mm.
And this, in terms of everything that I'm doing now, and exactly actually what's happening with you as well.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it
so,
weird?
so it's got. I would say that the reason I say they're both important is because, of course, we'll have those feelings, and we need to honor those feelings. I think to
Agree.
at least I respect those feelings to honor them, to be able to go like, this is it. I'm not going to hold this down. I'm going to let this out. I'm going to let this do its work because on the other side of this is the clarity of what the hell I need to do with this. Because if I
Absolutely.
hold it in, it stays in, and I can't really do anything if I'm still holding on to it. So let me get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's there. Yes, I know why. Let's get this out, and then we'll find out what we can do once we've got that out of us. But as long as we're doing them both, then
So
you do get to that
it's
split point.
practicing curiosity, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's practicing curiosity. So even the self-pity thing of what I'm hearing you say is information. And so
Yeah.
sitting with that, kind of noticing what's going on for you, where it might lead, so that you're not just passively giving into it. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of your process of thoughts of a lonely man is like, how do I get it out? How do I
Mm.
process this out loud and also help people understand, that you can get, not that you knew it at the time, it could have ended terribly, but that there is hope to get through. I want to just touch on like what you said earlier, which is sometimes the aloneness isn't a conscious choice or it's not about sitting with it. Like it could be, especially this time of year, it could be about bereavement. So you're remembering
Mm.
somebody that you lost. It could be that you've recently had a breakup. It could be that you're recently divorced, which I am, and your kids aren't with you. It could be that you simply, like me, I didn't like live in a place where I know everyone.
Yeah.
You're a third culture kid, or you're someone who's traveled a lot, and you just deeply miss your family. And so there's something just at this time of year in practicing self-compassion, trying to connect where we can, and sometimes making the first move, being
Yeah.
careful about the numbing, like going in moderation around the alcohol or the, things that you might use to escape. So it's practicing some self-compassion. I don't know, can we just say something about, like, what do you think people in that situation might do or think about to just get them through this time?
Yeah, I'm smiling for a reason. I'll explain in a moment. So I have to share because the reason I thought of them is because I've been thinking about the homeless, even though I realize that necessarily they won't probably be listening to this,
Probably
but
not.
the people who listen to this probably will be communicating them. So I want to give them the airtime. But also, it's because of my job,
Of course. Yeah.
um, and I'll have to just put a really general thing over the top of what my job is. I work with very vulnerable young people,
Yeah.
mid-teens to kind of early 20s, very vulnerable. And some of them have indeed been cast out of their own homes, quite violently so. And so I have a mind for them because I don't actually know how things are going to be for them this Christmas, to be honest.
Intense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I smile because one of the chats I had with one of them today was all about a self-care evening, like actually helping them. Because bear in mind, it's fair to assume, I want to say, that young people haven't, on the whole, grasp that idea, and particularly vulnerable young people, because of course they're not in an environment where this kind of stuff is going to be given to them or made aware to them.
Sure.
So the idea of self-care, self-love, all of that stuff, no, that
If
doesn't
you've never
exist in
seen
their
it
world.
modeled, if you've never seen it modeled
No.
by a parent or by a healthy role model or like that sort of foundational piece, it can be really hard to understand. How the hell do you give it to yourself if you haven't
Exactly.
seen it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so we did have a chat about how important it is to look after yourself and how important it is to show yourself appreciation no matter what. No matter what. Because particularly in this scenario, and I can speak to the listeners and viewers out there as well and say that it doesn't matter. I actually want to kind of aggressively punch my way through this one.
Go for it.
and go do you know what? If you do feel like crap, and you do feel like shit, and you feel like you're silly or stupid, or if you do feel like you're not good enough and shit like that, none of that, not one moment of that means that you cannot give yourself something that makes you feel good. It doesn't. They do not compute. They're not synonymous with each other, right? And I understand how they could be. The mind works wonders on itself. It does
Tricking
wonderful
us.
things.
Yes.
But actually, they do not have to be in the same vein, right? You can feel like utter shit. And that doesn't mean that you aren't allowed you're not allowed, sorry, to run yourself a nice warm bath, throw in a bath bomb, put on your favorite music, light some candles and have a glass of wine and sit there and be like, do you know what? I'm going to be the most polished shit in the world. Like because I'm dealing with this, and that's all the strength I know I need to have to reward myself for going through this stuff. And that's what I get from working with the vulnerable, these young people, is that they've experienced some stuff that I would never I've seen in films, but you never think that. Well, I never thought that I would be in the same space as people who'd experienced things like this.
Yeah.
And yet they learn, they study, they go off and do things, and they can smile and laugh and make jokes, and the humanity maintains, and that resilience and strength to be able to go through that and still continue to push. The fact that doesn't get celebrated in their life to me is just like, go run yourself a damn bath. Everyone needs a break. And I'll take it away from looking at vulnerable young people. Everyone needs a break. Everyone needs a break.
But we also need perspective. And that's what I've heard you say, is that, like the whole science behind gratitude is just giving you a little bit of perspective to go that, yes, you might be having a bad half an hour or a bad 10 minutes or even a bad week, but it could be worse. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. Because we should notice our feelings and we should connect with what's going on. And crucially, that self-awareness allows us to give us information about what we need. But there's some, having grown up in places like India and Brazil and Kenya and Russia and places like that, where you see abject poverty and you see a different way of living, there is something about the perspective as well. That we do have a lot to be grateful for in many parts of the world. And often our isolation is self-caused, as much as there's something around technology having an impact, especially if we think of the younger generation as well, who are always on their phones and distracted and all the rest of it. There's just something about us making the first move. And I guess that's the thought I want to, and I'll leave something to you as well. But the thought that I want to leave with people is, what can you do this Christmas to connect with someone else, to get out of your head a little bit and just reach out to somebody who, it could be your neighbor, it could be your friend, it could be a stranger, whatever it might be. Like, that's the world that I want to live in, where we actually put some conscious thought and effort into connecting with someone else, because you never know what their story will be. So, Dan, no pressure. What are your final thoughts for our listeners before we wish them a happy Christmas?
Along with connecting with others, I do want to ask as well, how are you going to go about connecting with yourself better?
Love it. Yeah. As
well. Love and that. I understand, it's funny because it's kind of the antithesis of what you said. You said, get out of your own head.
Yeah. And you're like, stay in your head. Get out. Stay in.
I want to say, because get out of your own head can be a phrase that's used when you're in a cycle and you're in that cycle.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
When you're stuck in some way.
I say, connect with yourself, but take in the tools. Take in your miner's hat with the light, your little pickaxe. Go in there prepared to do it, and go and connect with yourself.
I love that self-development thing. And I guess the get out of your head is like, you can connect with your intuition, your soul, your body, like all of you, in order to understand what it is you need. Sometimes our brain can just be like, what if, I'm a bad person, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, turn down the volume and really listen to what it's actually saying. And who knows what 2019 could bring you. Because me and Dan's lives are pretty good at the moment. I just want to say, me and Dan, we've sat through a bit of shit. And life isn't like, I have a lot to be grateful for.
Honestly, so, we both do.
It's been an interesting year. So happy Christmas to everyone. Enjoy tomorrow's Christmas Day. And Dan, thank you for joining us on this talk about loneliness.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And Merry Christmas, everyone.